I'm 82 years old, and the thing I regret most isn't something I did. It's something I kept putting off because I thought it could wait. My name is Margaret Hale. I'm saying that out loud because at my age names start to feel fragile, like they might slip away if you don't hold them for a moment. I live alone now. The house is quiet in a way that still surprises me even after all these years. Not peaceful, just quiet. There's a difference that you only learn when the silence starts answering back. People assume regret comes from big mistakes, affairs, failures, the wrong marriage, the wrong career. That wasn't it for me. My life from the outside looked reasonable, respectable even. I worked, I paid my bills, I showed up when I was supposed to. I did what a sensible woman was meant to do, and that's exactly where the trouble began. I spent most of my life believing that what mattered could always be returned to later. Conversations, rest, sitting still with someone without an agenda, saying the thing that felt awkward, calling when there wasn't a reason other than missing someone. I didn't ignore people because I didn't love them. I ignored them because I thought love was patient enough to wait. When I was younger, in my 20s and 30s, everything felt urgent except what actually was. Work had deadlines. Children needed schedules. Money demanded attention. Life felt like a long hallway with doors I could open later. I told myself, after this busy season, once things settle down, when there's more time. There was always a reason to delay, and every reason sounded responsible. I married young, not unhappily, just practically. We built a life the way you build a fence, one board at a time, solid, useful. Not much room to lean against it and talk. My husband was a quiet man, not unkind, just careful with words. So was I. There were evenings we sat across from each other at the kitchen table, both tired, both thinking we'd talk tomorrow instead. Tomorrow became a habit, then a pattern, then a wall neither of us knew how to climb. I told myself closeness didn't need tending, that it would survive on intention alone. It doesn't. I was busy being capable, being needed, being reliable. Those labels can become a shelter you never leave. Friendships faded slowly, not with arguments, just with postponed lunches, missed calls, cards I meant to send and never did. People assume relationships end with drama. Most end with silence that feels polite until it's permanent. I remember thinking often I'll make it up later, as if later was a place you could reach just by wanting to. Now at 82 time feels different. It doesn't stretch. It closes in gently like a door someone forgot to wedge open. And the one thing I wish I had taken seriously sooner was this, that presence is not automatic, that love unattended doesn't wait, that the small moments you delay are often the only ones that mattered. I didn't learn that early. I learned it after the chances were already gone. And once you see that clearly, you can't unsee it. That's where my story really begins. I used to think I understood time. I thought it was something you managed like a calendar or a budget. In my 30s, my days were full in a way that felt important. I woke up already behind. There were lunches, packed meetings to attend, errands that couldn't wait. By the time evening came, I felt entitled to quiet. Not shared quiet. Private quiet. If someone called, I sometimes let it ring, not because I didn't care, because I was tired, and I told myself I'd call back when I had more energy. Often I didn't. My mother lived 2 towns over. She liked to talk, not about anything urgent, just memories, neighbors, things she'd read. I remember standing in my kitchen with the phone pressed to my ear, watching the clock, feeling impatient with the slowness of her voice. I told myself I'd visit more when life eased up. Life never did. When she died, I found old notes she'd written to herself, grocery lists, phone numbers, and a small slip of paper with my name on it folded again and again like it had been handled often. I don't know why that stayed with me. Maybe because she hadn't needed more time from me, just more attention. But even then, I didn't fully understand. Grief can pass through you without teaching you what it came to teach. I went back to my routines, back to being useful. People praise that about me. You're so dependable. You always manage. You're strong. No one tells you that those compliments can cost you something. Strength became my excuse. If I could handle things, then no one needed to linger with me. If I was managing, then I didn't need to ask for help or admit loneliness. If I was fine, then I could keep postponing the deeper parts of living. My husband and I aged alongside each other without ever really slowing down enough to notice. We shared tasks more than thoughts, updates more than feelings. There were things I wanted to say to him, not dramatic things, just small truths, that sometimes I felt unseen, that I missed how we used to laugh, that I was afraid of growing old without really being known, but I didn't say them. I told myself there would be a better moment, a calmer evening, a weekend without obligations. He died on a Tuesday morning. Just like that, the future I was saving conversations for vanished. After the funeral, people came by. They sat with me. They spoke kindly. Then they went back to their lives. I don't blame them. That's how it goes. What stayed with me was not the loss itself, but the weight of everything I had postponed until it was no longer possible. That's when it began to settle in. Not all at once. Slowly. The realization that I had treated time like it belonged to me. It never did. I had lived as if connection was durable enough to survive neglect, as if the people I loved would always be available, always within reach, always patient. They weren't, and neither was time. That truth didn't arrive loudly. It arrived quietly, and it stayed. And once it took hold, I started seeing my life differently. After my husband died, the days stretched out in a way I wasn't prepared for. Not because I suddenly had too much time, but because I realized how little of it I had truly used well. Mornings were the hardest. There was no one to talk to before the day officially began. No shared coffee. No small remarks that don't seem important until they're gone. I started replaying moments I had never thought twice about. Times I had cut conversations short. Times I had chosen productivity over presence. Times I had told myself that showing up later would mean the same thing. It doesn't. I thought about friends I hadn't called in years. Some were gone. Others had lives so full now that my voice would have felt like an interruption. I don't blame them. I trained them slowly to live without me. That was the cost I hadn't calculated. We talk a lot about regret as if it comes from dramatic choices. Mine came from ordinary days, from choosing efficiency, from believing love didn't need my full attention. When I was younger, I thought being busy meant being important, that if I stopped moving, everything would fall apart. The truth is, most things keep going without you. What doesn't keep going is closeness. There was a moment years after my husband passed, Seth, when I finally understood what I'd been doing. I was sitting in a waiting room at the hospital watching a young couple argue softly. Nothing serious, just tiredness and misunderstanding. The woman reached for the man's hand. He hesitated, then took it. That small gesture hit me harder than any loss had, not because it was romantic, but because it was immediate, unpostponed, undelayed. I realized then that the one thing I had failed to take seriously was the present moment with another human being, not in a poetic sense, in a practical one, being there, fully, without multitasking, without planning the next thing, without assuming there would be another chance. I had treated presence like a luxury, something you earn after responsibilities are handled. But presence is not a reward, it's the work. Once I saw that I couldn't stop seeing how often I had avoided it, how often I had chosen motion over stillness, because stillness asks something from you. It asks you to feel, to listen, to be changed. At my age, change is limited. Time doesn't stretch to accommodate new habits. All I can do now is name the truth, that what I wish I had taken seriously sooner was not success or balance or even happiness. It was the simple act of being with the people I loved while they were still here, not later, not when things slowed down, while it was still possible. If you're listening to this and it resonates, you don't need to do anything dramatic. You don't need to fix your life. Just notice how often you delay the small moments, how often you assume time is on your side. It isn't. I don't say that to frighten you. I say it because I learned it too late. I'm 82 now. I don't have the illusion of endless days anymore. What I have is clarity. And clarity, when it arrives at the end of life, is both a gift and a quiet kind of grief. That's the truth I'm left with. Nothing more, nothing less.